Spend a little time here on a Sunday morning, just messing around here in the garage with the GoPro. I'm going to spend a little bit of time looking at the GoPro mounts, setting up the GoPro underneath our Hummer H3. So a couple weeks ago, coming out of Anza Borrego and Fish Creek Wash, I was driving over a lot of washboard. Now I did have the tires aired down, but again, my tires are low rated E and they're non-beadlocks. So I don't get quite as much cushion, say, as I would out of a load rate C tire. And if I went all the way down to like 12 or 13 PSI, which I didn't that day because it seemed fine to me. But the rattle eventually seemed to shake something loose. So by the time we were leaving, there was an uncomfortable noise coming from the back of the truck. So when we got out of the trail, I climbed underneath when we were airing up, and I just couldn't find anything. And since then, I don't hear or see anything. I've been under the truck multiple times. But when I take a fairly hard left to right turn, sometimes we hear a clunk. Kathy will be in the truck and she'll hear it as well. So the thought, joking around with coworkers, most of whom are engineers, so one made the joke, well, why don't you just hang underneath your truck while your wife drives? So I thought, I don't think you have my best interests in heart. But then we joked and I thought, well, I have all these GoPro mounts that I almost never use, so why don't I do that? So that's the mission here this morning, is to take a couple of the GoPro mounts, put the GoPro underneath the Hummer, drive around some tight turns, just here on asphalt, just going around roundabouts and things like that. See if I can reproduce the clunk and get any kind of insight. Our best guess is it's just the skid plates that got whacked by the boulder, kind of flexing against each other in a new way, where just every once in a while they give off a little pop. Nothing seems to be loose. All the spring, suspension, drivetrain, engine mounts, everything seems tight as a drum. So we'll see. All right, well, you gotta love the beautiful Southern California weather. It's December 15th and it's absolutely gorgeous out. So first I thought I'd just film some of the obvious things that I have checked and have been an issue in the past. So I'll just kind of walk around the truck trying to get, with the bright sunshine, hopefully the lighting will be adequate, try to get some simple footage of some of the things I have already verified. Alright, so one time in the past I had a mysterious clunk. Turned out to be two things. First were the sway bar link connections, and these had kind of wallowed out a bit, and or the bolt got loose. So to the extent that I can check it without putting it on a lift and really working it, there doesn't seem to be any play at all in these links, driver's side or passenger side. Another thing you can worry about are your ball joints, which both seem to be fine on driver and passenger, and then of course just anything loose where the wishbones join. Again, this is a 16-year-old truck, and then I don't know if the camera will pick it up, you can see all the way down along the torsion bar. So I pretty well inspected all of that to the best of my ability. Now when I was changing the oil, I had a chance to look at the bushings that support the differential, the front differential, and I didn't see any play there. The one thing that maybe I could tighten is one of the differentials, the rearmost bushing. It wasn't loose, but it looked like maybe the bolt wasn't all the way tightened on there. So I may try to put a wrench on that, but it seems very unlikely that that's my candidate. Also, of course, look at the shock. So I looked at the top and bottom to see if there was play where maybe they were, hammering when they extended because they'd been allowed to. But I looked at that day on the trail, and all four shocks looked good. Now the rear of the truck, similarly, the same kind of questions here. Are the sway bar links wallowed out or loose? The one thing I did notice is, you can see at that little bushing, it does look like the sway bar may have moved a bit. I should have pointed out, I have all the occasional wax and this and that you're hearing as you do this, as I do this. Years ago, I posted a video some time ago where I had to replace the front sway bar because I didn't notice. A mechanic working on something else noticed the front sway bar had corroded through and one end had fallen off. So no matter how good your links are, if your sway bar is broken in the middle, well, that'll make a funny sound, and it certainly won't function as a sway bar. But again, I checked this out last couple times. I heard a clunk. keep whacking the GoPro on things, and really didn't see anything. Now another obvious thing, you know, what I did immediately out of great concern was to make sure the axle on the leaf springs hadn't shifted, or the leaf springs themselves break. So you can see the U-bolts, the leaf springs, everything seems to be intact, including the hangers at each end. Again, this is a northern driven truck, so there's a fair bit of corrosion in the frame, but everything here is structurally sound. The bolts are intact, leaves are intact, the things holding the leaves together are intact, the U-bolts and the axles are intact, and the bolts, there's no indication of the axle having shifted. You can see the snubbers are good, so everything I could think to check back here is fine. You can also get a little bit of a peek at some of the cross members there that the skid plates are on, and there's just no indication there of anything having worked loose or starting to play. So that's why I kind of couldn't see anything back here, now having looked multiple times, that would explain that clunk sound. Now back in here, I'm where the skids kind of got hit a bit when I straddled a boulder there driving in the wash, but I really didn't see, like, push with my boot and everything. You can see here where the bolts are. I just didn't see anything indicative that these skids have any play in them. Here in this cross member is where the torsion bar terminates. That's what that little circle there is. And I didn't see any play here. And similarly, looking up at the transfer case, to the extent I can see things, I didn't see anything showing any play. I didn't see any indication that any bolts on the cross members themselves had play. So again, kind of running out of ideas. Again, here, kind of a close-up of that spring hanger. These on Hummers, if they get badly corroded, you can see these give out. Mine are both solid. No indication of any rattling, you know, less critical cross members either. There's some corrosion on them, especially that one there, which doesn't look that structural, but it does support the shock support there. But I kind of grabbed the shock supports there and I didn't feel anything. See, the body mounts look solid. Kind of check those out. You can see there the snubber and the body mount. I don't see anything there that would give rise to that clunking. And I don't see anything here on this cross member that would suggest it's been compromised in any way. Here again, with some natural lighting, you can kind of squeeze in a little bit and get some better views of things. But the transfer case and how it mounts at a better angle a second ago, it's hard to see through the GoPro's lens, but all of the mounting bolts seem to be intact. And right across here, it's really hard to see, but that's where the transmission mounts to the cross member. It seems to be fine. So I'm looking ahead. The only thing I did see, doesn't show up as well in this angle, is where the front differential's rearmost mount is. You can only just sort of see it there. Maybe the bottom bolt there could use to be tightened. But again, when we were driving out of the wash, we didn't hear it all day, and then at the end you hear, perfectly coincident with the rhythm of the wash, was something flopping. And I have never heard that since. So something is loose somewhere. It didn't sound like it was coming from the inside of the truck. That's the other thing, because I don't always, the guy's got locked here. I don't always secure everything. I did realize one time, man, when I really give it the beans merging into the interstate, I hear a thunk, and then I realized, well, yeah, it's because that ammo can was sliding back and hitting the swing gate. So again, there's really nothing here that seemed to coincide with that sound. Nothing mounted on the mollies that would have been giving that rhythm. It's my receiver winch. It doesn't really flap around. And I thought, well, you know, could it have been something like the first aid kit? But I don't see any indication. It didn't sound like it was coming from any of the storage cubbies. So I'm pretty sure that what I'm hearing is coming from the outside of the truck. think it's anything back here with the back seats or the cargo. So, I'll check the motor mounts under the hood. I kind of looked at them from under the engine the other night with a flashlight. And then I think I'll look for a place to mount the GoPro in a few spots and just kind of drive around and then look at the footage. Well, I thought peeking down with the hood up I'd get a line of sight to the motor mounts. I can only sort of get it right there. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but you can sort of see the mount there. This side I really couldn't see it at all, but if I get underneath the truck I can kind of sneak a peek. So it's very hard to see here, but you can just kind of see the chassis rail and the motor mount right there. So here on the driver's side I was able to some extent to kind of poke around in there with my hand and a flashlight and verify that the engine mount to the chassis here, I can't quite see it through there, but I was able to contort myself enough with the flashlight to verify that there was nothing obvious wrong with this engine mount. Here on the passenger side I can't even pretend that I can get a light in there, but I did have the skids off when I changed the oil the other day, and I didn't give a massively thorough inspection because I was kind of in a hurry to finish changing the oil. But I definitely didn't see anything in there that looked loose. And again, the nature of the sound, if you've ever had a broken engine mount, especially, hopefully you catch it with the first one, you can kind of tell. Like you torque the engine and you can hear the clunk as the engine twists in response to its own torque on the shafts and then releases. And I'm not hearing anything like that. The only time I hear the sound is when there's kind of torsional body flex. That's why I think it's just something funky going on with the way the skid plates are meshing with one another. Just like with the GoPro here, I thought I was recording, but I wasn't. Okay, so using the other camera, I've put the GoPro in one of its mounts, and since I haven't been able to figure out exactly where that clunk is coming from, I put a fresh battery in the GoPro, and I put it in this other case where the mount works. I didn't cover this little jobber. I think I've got that little door and some of my, organized with the gear, but it should be fine. Again, Southern California, you don't typically drive through puddles. We'll see. We'll see if I can find some good angles. I'm going to drive around a couple of roundabouts, kind of do a hard right, hard left body lean a couple of times, and see if I can induce the clunk and see if the GoPro can detect any kind of movement that would explain it. Okay, I did multiple laps around the neighborhood here. Just a couple of quick turns around a couple of roundabouts that allowed me, without going fast at all, to induce a little bit of body, well, actually a pretty extreme bit of body lean. And I could hear a clunk. So we'll see if I can tie it to anything on the GoPro. I was pleasantly surprised. I did the preview once, and it seemed like the microphone in the GoPro is still sufficiently available there that I was able to figure out, or at least I'm anticipating that I'll be able to get some audio as well. So if there's a big clunk, hopefully I'll get some audio on the GoPro as well, because I'm increasingly convinced it's coming from inside the truck. So I'm going to look at one thing here and then take this inside and look at the footage. So again, the only consistent sound I was hearing seemed to be coming from back here, so I'm wondering if I'm not just hearing the winch clunk against the recovery tools ammo can here, or the CO2 cylinder. And you can kind of see this bad boy has popped off, suggesting that between the handles and things getting loose inside here, that might have been what I've been hearing all along. So I'll go ahead and listen to the GoPro footage, but I am now more convinced that the rustling I was hearing over the washboard, or more like flop, 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 sounded like metal flopping against metal, and the clunking that I'm hearing going around turns when I really bank hard, I'm increasingly convinced is coming from inside my cargo area. So as is usually the case, much ado about nothing. Well, that might seem like a lot of work just to come to the obvious conclusion that I should secure things better in the back of my truck if I'm going to drive over washboard or even cruise around on the highway. I'm going to take everything out this week and see if I can confirm that the only clunks are coming from the cargo area. But two things to take from this. One is, yeah, a GoPro is an excellent diagnostic tool to look at the parts of the car that you can't see. The other is, don't leave sounds like that unidentified for too long, especially not if you're going to go in a remote area solo. So I recently watched a video from Trail Recon and the Story Till Now. They're just getting started from Canada to drive all the way up to Tuktoyaktuk and the Arctic Circle and all that, and they hear a clunk, clunk, clunk. And it's kind of funny to me that they just decided, well, we're going to go anyway, even though Sean from the Story Till Now ended up driving a two-wheel drive Ram all the way up because his front drive shaft was interfering and had basically rubbed the boot off, lost its grease, and was going to fail. So he effectively drove a two-wheel drive truck all the way up there. But those are the kind of things that it's important to catch early when you hear a weird noise or a clunk. So while in this case it doesn't seem like anything brilliant was diagnosed, at least I did get to see a number of other things, including the telltale click here. I was wondering what this clicking noise was, and now I know it's a little band on the boot on the CV joint. Clicking against a fastener when my wheel's in a certain position. So at least I did diagnose a different sound.